Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Megan Muller, a productivity enthusiast here at ActivTrak and your tour guide of sorts for today. While we wait for others to join, I did want to share a few things with you. One, I did want to let you know that tomorrow we actually do have another live session on Friday at 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time. It's another configuration tip session. We call it ActivTrak 101, but don't let the name fool you. It's really great session to cover different configuration needs to set the right foundation for your whole ActivTrak instance. So if you're new, it's a great session to get yourself set up right so that all of your reports and dashboards are truly reflecting what's going on in your organization. And hey, if you've also been with us for a little while, it's always good to go back and fine tune, take a look at what you set up from before. We know, even from looking at our own instance, things change from when you set up something a year ago or 2 years ago to maybe where you are now for your organization. So always a good idea to go back and look at some of those foundational things. The other thing is it's a little bit more of a more casual session to where you can absolutely just kind of have more free flow conversation and questions and answers. So if you have other questions around configuration that are not covered during that session, it's a little bit more free flow from a time standpoint, and from who we have on there, you can kind of address different things. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew about that session tomorrow, 11 a.m. In the resources section below, which I will get into in just 1 second. It's the top link. It's ActivTrak 101. So if you're interested in going to that session, we would love to have you. So let's go ahead and move on to actually our dashboard that you have for today. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in thirds. We've got a left side, a middle, and a right one. If you start in the top left, that's where you should see the speakers. So that's where you should see me. Immediately below that, we actually have a question box where you can submit questions. Or if you just want to chat in, that's where to do it. I will be in the background the whole time. Another colleague and I will also be with me looking at those questions. And if they're very specific to you, then we'll try and respond. If they're a great question for the group so everyone can learn, then we may hold that until we have questions at the end. Or if it makes sense, I may actually interrupt our speakers and have them answer it while we're in the flow of everything that we're working on. In the middle section, you'll see slides at the top with the content for today. And then below that, you should see two modules, one with those related resources. So that's going to be that ActivTrak 101 session is going to be right up top. And then below, you're going to have links to resources that are related to the content that we're covering today. And then you should also see a module where you can actually contact the team just directly from there. If you have questions and you want us to follow up with you, that comes directly to our team. And then we will make sure that, whatever you need, we'll get you to the right person for sure. And then on the right side, you can actually learn a little bit more about our speakers up in the top right. And then in the bottom right, you should actually see something if you want to continue the conversation, whether that's to get a more in-depth demo or if you want your account team to follow up with you or something like that. Also, along the bottom, you will see some emoji reactions, a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And we would really love to have your feedback throughout the session, letting us know, what do you like? What do you not like? We really appreciate feedback so that we can understand what's really resonating with you. The only other two things I wanted to mention from a housekeeping perspective is we are recording the session. We get that question all the time. We are recording it, and we will send the recording, the slides, all the related resources. You'll get a link to those all no later than tomorrow. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn to today's session, top 5 tips to configure ActivTrak like a pro. I'd like to invite our VP of Product, Suzanne Carroll, and Senior Sales Engineer, Jose Diaz, on to join me. Hey, y'all.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yes, and they will take you through today's content. So just a friendly reminder, feel free to ask questions in the bottom left and make sure you share. Let us know if you're liking or you're not liking something, putting a little pressure on them. The content, please share by clicking that thumbs up and the thumbs down emoji. throughout the session. And with that, Suzanne, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Megan. All right, let's get started and talk through some of these tips. So we're going to be talking through 5 distinct tips here, starting with goals and defining the custom goal for your organization. Then we'll get into some of our newer features with schedule adherence, how you can configure that, integrating your calendar for those offline meetings. And then I'll pass it over to Jose and we'll start talking about alarms, notifications, and creating some automated exception reports. Lots of good things. Obviously, this is not comprehensive of every way you can configure ActivTrak, but it's really good start. So let's get going. Okay, we're going to start with a quick poll. We'd like to better understand how what you want to get out of this and whether or not you've used some of these features. So if you could go ahead and start clicking on any of these 5 features that you've already used and that you're comfortable with. Clicking on it is quite easy. So to customize or custom goal setting here, if I click right here, you can see it's checked for me, and you can see that information. So go ahead and click if there's any of these that you have already used before. If you haven't used any of them, that's okay as well. We'll give you just another minute there. You probably have seen some of these in your system and in the app already. But if you haven't, that's okay. We'll be going through all of that today, and we'll walk through how to set them up, what they're used for, and make sure that we're focusing on that. All right. We've got some good participation there. There's about 100 of you out there, so getting some really nice ones, nice responses.
All right, we'll just give
All
it just a
right.
few more seconds if everyone can get their answers in. Our audiences are always so great about participation. So I always love to see what's going on. And really, this just gives us a great understanding of what you've heard of, what you're maybe using, just so that we can really understand and even, kind of go through the content in a little bit of a different way, depending on how you, put it, whatever you put in. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, last chance. I'm going to call it in 3 seconds. Okay. All right. Let's see what they say.
Okay. So one last poll before we reveal the results. This one is, we'd like to really understand what you want to learn more about. So it's the same options, the 5 items that we are going through today. So click on the one or the individual items. You can select multiple to show us which ones that you really want to learn more about, to really understand whether that's those custom goals, it's schedule adherence, understanding how people are working within the confines of their start and end time, maybe the offline meetings when the time that they aren't using their computers, but having calls or in-person meetings, or our alarms and notifications that's sending you information directly in your email in your inbox or maybe in your Slack or MS Teams, and then some of those automated exception reports that come directly to you where you don't have to go into the app to see the information. You set it up and it comes on a regular cadence depending on what you need. So seeing some great participation here. Select one or all or any of them there, and that'll help us really, as we're going through this, focus on the items and the particular features that you guys want to learn more of. All right, we'll give you another minute or so to get in there. Nice. All right, so if you haven't clicked one, go ahead and click. I personally think schedule adherence, there's a few things to configure there. I think it's really a useful new feature. Maybe I think that because I've helped develop it. I'm a little biased, but I think all of the features are great and we're going to spend some good time on them.
I know a lot of people really like that one, but I also know they really like, and these kind of are a little bit of a bundle together. They're a little bit separate, but the alarms and the notification and those automated exception reports, I feel like a lot of times the things that those address, people are really needing to just know and be, kind of know
Absolutely.
automatically. So it's easy. So
I
I don't know.
agree. Makes it so much easier.
We'll see what people want to learn.
All right.
All right, Suzanne,
Okay,
let's
what do you
close
think,
it out.
Megan?
Yep,
All
let's
right,
close it
let's do it. Okay, so looks like I think you guys can probably see these results. Is that right, Megan? This is my first time in this new system.
out. Yes, yes, you can see
Great.
them.
All right, so the alarms and notification, the winner, no surprise there. Schedule adherence as well. Great. This is really good that you guys have already used a lot of these features. And we're seeing, all of them have been used. So we'll start to cover some more details of the ones that you guys haven't quite used yet, and also reinforce the items that you have. This is great. All right, I'm going to move to the next one, which is what do you want to learn more about? Awesome. Okay, really high. People want to learn about everything, it looks like, Jose. So I think we can do it. We've got definitely the top one there is alarms and notifications. Again, very popular. It's really helpful to have those set up to where you just get that information automatically and don't have to go look for it. So we'll cover all 5 of these and make sure you get all the information you need. All right. So let's get started. Okay, so first we're going to talk about defining a custom goal. And while I'm introducing this, it would be really helpful if you could go ahead, sign into your ActivTrak instance so you could follow along, see where it is. I know I'm a visual learner and I learn better when I'm in there and really looking at the different items as I'm focused here. So I'm going to go into the app myself. And while I'm doing that, talk a little bit about why these goals matter. The strategic goals that we enable within here are really there to increase accuracy and relevance, make sure it's relevant for your organization, each individual team. Build that trust and transparency. When that specific work context is considered in the goal setting, it really reinforces that ActivTrak is for insights rather than oversight, which really addresses some of those common concerns that we have. And because you've built that transparency and that trust through it, it's also driving some sustainable work habits. You're looking at it and calibrating these goals strategically. So those goals will promote that healthy patterns, prevent burnout, disengagement, while also optimizing the sustainable productivity, balancing efficiency with employees' well being, and really helps drive those healthy work habits. And it obviously also helps enable more impactful coaching. You can have productive conversations with your employees, referencing their goals that reflect the team's actual work demands and focusing on removing obstacles rather than arbitrary metrics. So this report, this activity breakdown is in our Essentials Plus and professional accounts where you can start to see those goals. So for this team, the product team, we have customized goals within here. And you can see overall, we're in an hour and a half or just over 1.7 hours over goal, which is really good. You can also scroll down here and see those that are under goal. So Omri and Rebecca are just under their goals. And should be coached to come back up specifically for those productive hours for that user. Now, we have these goals set automatically for all customers and all accounts within here, and some of the plans can update it. I'm going to go in here to configuration and take a look at how you change those goals. So for the account level goals, which is where it's a goal that works across all users within the account that have their agents returning data, you can change this goal right here under Insights configuration, where our metric for the productive hours per day, focus, or collaboration can be set directly here. Productive hours per day is set by default to 6.5 hours per day. That gives employees the ability to say, the focused productive time that is relevant to the business is the majority of your day, but there's also time for administrative tasks. Maybe you're collaborating on MS Teams or on Slack, or you're taking a break for lunch. Gives you plenty of time to do all of those things. Now, if I were to change it and say, 6.5 is a little low for this team or the organization, all I have to do is go in and change that number and remember to hit save, and it will be there and it will update throughout all of the areas that show those goals. So that's the easiest way to update the goals across your account. There's also the ability to change it. If you're in our upper plans of professional, you can change it for individual teams. So leaders might have a higher goal than individual contributors and things like that. And you have that flexibility and that ability to switch between those. So that's for the goals. Pretty simple. I would say just go into configuration within Insights and change that and hit save. Next, I'd like to go and take a quick look at our schedule adherence. So again, the way we design ActivTrak is we make sure that everything is easy to set up. You can go in there and quickly get your the right metrics, the information that you need customized for your organization, and you can start managing your employee when they're working and how they're working. So schedule adherence, as you can see, we're in early access here. Some customers have had it for 6 months or more, but everyone, all paid accounts now have access to this report. And this is specifically for those who have, maybe you have a strict when employees should start and end their day, or maybe you have core hours. Like our organization, we have core hours. We're in many different time zones, so those we want to make sure that everybody is working within certain core hours. So that's when we schedule meetings, all those different things. This works for both. And you can see here that I'm on summary tab as well as quick entry. This is what I mean by our configuration is quite easy. You can go in here and quickly change what time you expect employees to start. Let's say 10 a.m. And then I'm going to switch this to 5:30 a little bit later. Now that's going to change all the data below to see how people are working within this schedule. Typically, we give managers access to this, and they can go in and change this and configure it and see how people are adhering to that schedule down below. We also bring in this break time so you can have that expected time for the full schedule, really understand when and how long they are supposed to be working. But there's no expectation that they are working directly from that 10 a.m. to 5:30 straight. Because we employ humans, not robots. But once you're in this, you can start to see already those who have completed their schedule or not. So let's take Javier, for example. He worked 6 hours, almost 6:40, and he completed that schedule. He didn't have any time off or PTO or anything, and he started on time. That's why there's no late start here. And he ended past that expected time, past 5:30. So he doesn't have that early end. But if I look at Fernando, for example, here, Fernando worked just 5.5 hours. So he did not complete his schedule and he ended a little bit early. Now you could also see that his total work time throughout that day, which isn't just within the schedule start and end, was 7.5 hours. So he definitely met his productivity goal, but the scheduled hours wasn't quite right. So he likely was working earlier than this. If I change this, let's go ahead and change it to maybe 8 a.m. to 5:30, and let's see how that changes it for Fernando. This is a common occurrence for managers who are trying to understand how people are working and making sure they have everything covered accurately. Okay, so it looks like I still didn't get him early enough because he does. I know he's on the East Coast, so he starts really early. Let's go into the detailed view and I can start to see even more information. You can see the hours that he's expected here, 60. I can see the 7 hours during those productive, that start and end. So the productive hours during the scheduled hours, you can see he hit his full goal. Here we go. Okay, he started at 7 4:17 a.m. and ended at 4:06. So his schedule should probably be a lot earlier than some of those other ones. Like, for example, down here, we could see Omri. He started 2 hours after this, 8 a.m. So he probably needs to be scheduled a little bit later. So this is a great way for managers to take a look at when they're working and optimize the schedules to meet your customers' needs based on how people are working, where they're working, things like that. Um, I also want to show this saved here. So this saved is where admins can go in and create schedules for the different teams. Right now, you can set up one schedule. We're building out the ability to set up multiple schedules. And you can see here, the scheduled hours for this team is 9 to 4 with a 45-minute break. And now I can see all of that across the organization. They weren't expected to work on the 10th. But you could start to see the scheduled time that has been saved. It's already in there, and you can adjust it to there. This particular report is really good for understanding when your employees are supposed to work, when they're starting, when they're ending, if they're late or leave early. And you can customize all of this for your organization. Maybe you want to say, you know what, I don't really care about the break time, but I do want to see offline meetings, which we'll get into in the pretty soon on the next configuration item I'm talking about. Offline meetings is showing from their calendar when they had a meeting in there, but they weren't on their computer. So, for example, this user had 50 minutes of an offline meeting, and you can see that total work time is including their screen time. Screen time is the new name for total time, offline meetings, and it pulls it all together in this work time metric, which is the productive time and offline meetings. Everybody can configure this account or this report individually with these columns, and that will change it on the view that you are in. I'm a detailed view, so offline meetings will always be a detailed view for me going forward. And when I export it, this export will export just the columns in this view that I'm looking at. So it's a nice way to customize the report, set it up directly for your organization, and make sure it works. The next thing I want to show you is how you get these saved schedules in here. So if you go down and you're an admin, you go into settings and then schedules. This will bring you to two types of schedules. We have work schedules, which are in beta, and these are specifically for a schedule adherence. And then we have track schedules. This is where this has been a feature for a very long time. You can set it up to when you want the agents to track how people are working or when they are working. So if you set up a schedule where it's from 9 to 8 p.m., then anytime after 8 p.m. and before 9 a.m. will not be tracked by the agent. But this work schedule is the schedule specifically for when we're expecting them to work. So that it has nothing to do with whether the agent collects data. It's just bringing in those start, end, and break times so we know what's expected. And right now we have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule set up for these four different groups. And you can always go in here and change them. So there's one single schedule that's set up now as we're in beta, but as we are moving towards early access, we are going to enable that for multiple schedules. So you can set one up for each individual time that people are working and how they are working.
So
All
Suzanne,
right.
if you have,
Mhm.
if you have, just we had a question come in, and I
Yeah.
just think it's great to look at it while we've got this on screen. So, if someone, if they want, if different individuals have different schedules, but maybe that's the schedule they need to adhere, right? Like I could see that for shift work or to make sure you've always got coverage, those kinds of things. Can
Mhm.
you set it up for individual employees? And do you just have, can you walk us through that?
Sure. It's common request. So right now we have that one schedule, a single schedule that you can set up as we're in beta because we're collecting feedback just like this, really understanding how people are using their schedules and how they want to set them up. But fairly soon, within this quarter, we will be introducing multiple schedules where you can have those various different schedules. Like, for example, I spoke to a financial institution that has a team of 11 account executives. They have different schedules depending on their time zone and where their customers are. And so there's 4 different schedules for those 11 employees. So you'll be able to set up those individual schedules and assign them to different teams or to different people. And that will be available within the next couple of months. Great
Okay.
question.
Okay, great. Okay.
All right. So speaking of that, we have some schedule adherence notifications. So these are, like I said, it's in beta for defining that schedule that I showed you within the account. And we also have the ability to send proactive alerts to where if somebody started work late, they are, 45 minutes too late to their scheduled start time, we can send a quick notification to MS Teams, to Slack, and let you know that, hey, both Bobby and Bill are late for their schedule. Or, for example, if somebody ended early, they left a couple hours before their schedule end, you want to make sure that during that time that they are expected to work, the people are working. So your customers are getting their calls answered, their emails responded to, and the full team is available to complete the work. We can set up these notifications for those schedule infractions. So that way you can either get an instant ping to know that something has happened, or a digest that describes everything that they had worked, or that everybody who missed the mark on either the start time, the end time, or if they didn't meet their productivity target, whether that's that's specifically looking at the amount of time that they spent on productive or business related activities throughout their scheduled time for that day. So this is really helping managers understand how people are working, when they are working, and making sure that you're addressing the needs of your customers, your clients who rely on those workers, on how they put things together, put your schedules together, and make sure that they are working accurately. All right.
Hey,
One
Suzanne,
other, mhm,
is there a way you could pull that schedule adherence back up and
yeah, of
just
course.
take a look at, how you can actually see how folks are working throughout the day? We just had a
Mhm.
question come in, and they were just curious if this new view really allows you to see that work throughout the day.
Sure.
Um,
So we've got a couple of different features that are showing these saved and quick entry of schedules compared to what they're working. So this right here on the scheduled adherence, it's very similar to the working hours report, where it shows one user per day, and the work that they have done throughout that day. So in the detailed view, you can start to see when they were expected to work, how much productive time they met, whether or not they met their productive goal. If you're in Essentials Plus or Professional, first and last time, and then any productive time that was outside of their scheduled hours, inactive time, meaning time that they weren't putting inputs into the computer. So this is the high level metadata for that user for that day. But if I were to go into top users and groups, we can see a couple of things. I'm going to go back to the summary view. You can see for each user, I have last 7 days here for the product team, my team. You can see high level up here how they're working. And then when I go down here, I can start to see, so you can see this is following that Monday, Wednesday, Friday saved schedule. So that's why you see these black lines just on those days. If I go to quick entry, it's going to pull in the start and scheduled in here. And this is that visualization of whether or not and how people are working through their scheduled time. So Javier, you can see, gets a burst of energy at night, and he's starting to work quite a bit into the evening. So his schedule maybe not quite right. Let's take a look at Chris's time. Chris, you can see he does do a little work before 8 a.m. and then doesn't really do a lot of work um, after that 5:30 ish, maybe a little bit of checking things where you can come in here. But this visual indicator of the start and the end of the schedule will show you how people are working within that time. And you can start to see that inactive time we saw in schedule adherence was coming through for Chris. You can start to see how that inactive time, this white space, is adding up to that hour or so.
Awesome.
And this
Thanks.
is Sure. This is very helpful for those who are on those either core working hours or specific schedule when people are expected to work. We always have working hours as well. This is has been redesigned. It looks very similar to schedule adherence, and we've brought it into this more modern design to show this. We tend to use working hours for those who are knowledge workers, don't have a strict schedule or shift expected for their employees. So it'll still give you all of those great stats in terms of offline meetings, productive time, screen time, all the time that they've spent on their computer, time off. You can integrate and show your PTO, or the work time here, which is including your productive time and offline meetings. This is also has the great features where you can customize your summary and detailed view. So if I change anything here, like say, for example, work time is not that useful for me. I don't want to use it because I haven't integrated my calendar yet. I don't see screen time, or I don't see offline meetings in here. I'm going to go ahead and do that there. Okay, it's gone. I'm just going to focus on screen time, and I can move this over here and see that information there. That's fairly a useful one. You can do the same thing with detailed if you'd like, and you can really decide which data points are important to you and which are not. You can also see in the detailed view, we have the active and passive. So we're customizing these reports, setting up these configuration options to make it really easy for you to get just the information you need and focus on that data, set up the reports that your leaders, your executives need. You can easily download just the columns and the order that you have within here, right here, and get access to that information on a repeat basis and have exactly what you need. The next thing I want to address is the configuration of offline meetings. So offline meetings, I've mentioned it several times. These are a calendar integration. So we all know that as we're back in the office, as we have calls to customers, like I know a lot of our sales team members have calls directly to customers, that isn't necessarily going to be accounted for with your computer activity, which is what ActivTrak tracks and excels with. So to augment that activity on their machine, we can go into the integrations here, and you can enable either Google Calendar or Outlook. You click on here and you can see all of the details on how to do it. It's a very fast, easy way to set up your calendar integration. And once you've set it up, we have down here, we have an article where you can go into it, and also a setup guide. And this will walk you through it and also give you all of the information. Once it is enabled, it'll show you the last time we received it. It refreshes once a day. This is a really great way to complete the picture of when your employees are working and how they're working, whether it's on their computer or it's a scheduled meeting within their calendar because they have a call or in-person meeting. The way that this works is it's pretty simple. You set it up, you configure that, and then you can go into your account configuration and you can set it up to determine for offline meetings which calendar invites show up in the system here. And so you can say, I want to set what's the minimum number of invitees. So oftentimes, if somebody just creates a calendar event on their calendar and it's just a focus time, that shouldn't necessarily be there. Or maybe it's a dentist appointment. But if there's two invitees there, that's more likely to be a work. You can, if you want to be more strict, you can say 3 and then make sure you click save to for that to be saved and configured across your account. You can also set, okay, good, that one was saved. You can also set a maximum meeting length. Ours in our account is 7 hours. And this is so if there's a 12-hour meeting or they're not working, that might be an out of office calendar where they also save their manager on that calendar invite. So you can set the maximum number of hours for these that will be counted. So there's quite a bit of configuration in here that allows you to have it all set up and show those offline meetings throughout the reports. And I showed it a little bit in here where you can see the offline meetings that are coming through for those who aren't on their computer. And you can also see it within a number of these visualizations. So this down here, you can see Omri on the 5th. He was both in the office and remote last Thursday. And you can see he had several offline meetings. This peach color is where you're filling in that gap. And he had a couple of other ones here. If there's any digital activity at all, it will not show that offline meeting. But if there's a calendar invite for that time, it's now over 3 invitees and it's under 7 hours and the user doesn't have any digital activity, we will fill in that time with that offline meeting. So you can see specifically how people are taking calls, whether they're in person or it's just a call where they're not on their computer. So that is offline meetings. I'm going to go back and hand it off to Jose so he can give us more details on alerts and notifications. And actually, I forgot, we have another quick poll here for that beta of schedule adherence notifications. So like I said, the notifications for schedule adherence is in beta now. Please click if you'd like to be part of that. We are going to be adding a number of features to schedule adherence over the next few months. That'll include more saved schedules. It will include, we're starting to look at time zone to show your employees work across different time zones depending on where they're working. We're adding more and more notifications here. So definitely those schedule adherence ones, but even more will come through. So let us know if you're interested and we can get you on the next tranche of customers who are added to that beta. It's been quite popular already, but we are looking forward to seeing even more people in there. I'm going to click yes because I want to be in the beta, even though I already know.
So real quick, since you are already in the beta, is there a way that you could actually show us how to set up that notification? We had a question come in. I think people are excited about it. Didn't know if you could real quickly show that or not.
Sure. Let me get into sharing my screen again.
And the other question, just while you're in there, someone did ask, where do you enter time off? Like, I think you had mentioned someone maybe didn't have time off or what have you. So if we could address those two things, that would be awesome while we're in this view.
Okay, great. So let's get into these alarms where you could start to see some of the different ones. And Jose's going to go into more details here, but I just went into alarms, configuration. And when you're in the beta, you'll see 3 new alarms down at the bottom. It's with this, the type is that exclamation point. So I'm going to filter just for those. And you can see that we have a late start, an incomplete day, and a scheduled end. So I'm going to go in here and click edit. And I can see these have already been configured for you, just like some of our default alarms. All you have to do is say, okay, I want to activate it, and then scroll down here. And I want, these are the individuals who should get this email. The subject of the email is the title bar of what the user is on, as well as a notification word, and you can customize that all you'd like. This one, we haven't set up the notifications to Slack or to MS Teams, but you can do that if you'd prefer it. And so every time there's a late start, these 4 individuals will start to get the emails. So it's quite easy. It's very similar to our other alarms. Just go in there and filter for that notification, configure who should receive it, and then hit save. And we have one for each of those. So if I go back, filter this again, you can see the incomplete day and the early end. And you could edit all of those and set it up. Um, the other question was about PTO, was that right? The time
Yes.
off?
Yeah, where can you
Great.
enter that in the schedule adherence?
So time off is also in a new feature. And those integrations are all down here. So our time off functionality will integrate and be entered based on different HR systems. So right now we are supporting 5. We will have 10 total in the next couple of months. So if you don't see your HR system where you are keeping your time off now listed here, let us know, and we can put it on our list of systems to integrate with. And you can go in here. It's a pretty simple process to integrate. Once you click on it, it'll walk you through in this guided wizard here to have you set it all up. I don't personally have access to Bamboo, so I can't show you how to do that right here, but it's fairly simple. You're integrating your time off with our data, and then that will start to show right now in 2 reports. It'll show in working hours. So you can see right here with this red, if I start to see time off listed here, I will know. So say, for example, Sarah, she doesn't have any digital time from yesterday. This is actually an employee who left recently, but let's pretend she's on PTO. This should show 8 hours here, and we'll know as a manager coming into this report, okay, I don't have to freak out that Sarah doesn't have any productive time, any offline meetings, or anything there, because I see that she has approved time off right here. So the goal with this time off is to obviously make configuration easy and so you can set it up, but also to make it to where it flows from the source of record. So you don't have to enter in any other information. You can make sure that all of the time off that is inputted by the employee and approved by their manager, or however the approvals work for your organization, flows directly into ActivTrak. Great questions. Any others before I stop sharing and hand it over to Jose?
I think that there were just 2 questions around HR system integration just for that time off. And think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you confirm. Are paychecks and Paylocity going to be included? Are
Oh,
those
great
integrations
question.
we have?
They are definitely on our list for those for adding them to the system, and I believe they're targeted for later this year. But I'll have to double check.
Okay, perfect. And then this PTO integration, if you have schedule adherence, this is already a part of that, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
The PTO is, you can integrate it in there, and it will be shown within schedule adherence very easily. It's one of the columns that are there by default. You can see right here, and you can once you start integrating, you can start to see all of those great details.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Jose, do you want to walk us through? I already gave a little teaser of alarms, so.
Yeah, thank you for that very informative and detailed rundown, Suzanne.
Mhm.
Focus on here. It looks like we've already gone through a lot of the. Okay.
Oh, we might have hidden a couple of the slides that should be shown, that 15 and 16.
No worries. We can always talk through it. I think really what we're looking to focus here are on the alarms functionality, right? So all of the information that you'll see, this is already collected and reported on within the application. Alarms really allow you to streamline the notification of that information, right? Sometimes this can mean that it's something that you need to take immediate action on, or perhaps you just need to have an easily referenceable record of an event that occurred, maybe to discuss with an employee on one-on-one or pass off to legal or HR. So really the main areas that we'll be focusing on today are around input simulation, And I think we've got our slides back, perhaps. Nope, may have been hidden still. Yeah, so it'll be around NP simulation, right? Understanding if there are any gaming of the system, spoofing of the system, right? Technology is getting really sophisticated these days that allow employees to appear active and productive where they may not even really be sitting in front of their computer. So we'll show how we can first detect and then notify the right individuals. We'll also look at making sure that employees are using the right tools and also the right areas of the tools, right? We all have kind of a prescribed use of certain tools. HR, for example, I may be a manager that has access to our HR system, but that's really designed for me to approve PTO and maybe input some information around the employees that are within my purview. I really shouldn't be looking at the entire employee listing or looking at any kind of sensitive data from those employees. So we'll show you how to configure the alarms to identify if that happens and then be notified of that kind of occurrence. The third type of notification will be more around what we refer to as entertainment breaks, right? Anything that may be non-business related or something that you've classified as being productive that you want to know about. So are people accessing Netflix, Hulu, any of those streaming or gaming sites? And even allowing you to add additional parameters, right? This may be allowed during their break or lunchtime, so you can factor in that duration element. So if they exceed that allotted time for that kind of activity, you can be notified when that occurs. And then from there, we'll pivot more into being notified of exception reporting, right? So there are ways that we've designed teams and set directives and expectations on how they should operate, including the number of hours that they should be putting in and the number of days that they should be present and online. So we can define these parameters and allowing the system to identify anyone who falls outside of those ranges or those optimal zones, and then notify the right individuals. Typically, that's going to be the manager or more of a director level. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will dive in. All right, you should see the alarm configuration. If you're following along, you'll have your navigation pane on the left-hand side. There is an alarms section, and from within the alarms, you have a configuration option. This is going to bring you into a screen that already has a good number of pre-built alarms. These are pretty much ready to go out of the box. All you really need to do is do some fine-tuning, activate the alarm, define who you want to assign these to, and you're good to go. The one that we'll focus on first is around input simulation. So you'll see it labeled as PFA, which stands for potential false activity. And this is really designed to understand if anybody's using any kind of gaming or spoofing system to appear active and productive while they may not be, right? So you're probably already a little bit familiar with some of the configuration. First, you'll have the option to activate that alarm, define who you want this alarm to apply towards. This can be to all users and computers, or if you want to focus on a specific team or role, this is where you can make that call. And then from there, going into the conditions. Now, something you'll notice within the majority of the alarms, you're usually setting up the conditions such as the field, operator, and value based on data that we're collecting. Usually this is found within the activity log, right? So if there's a certain domain that they're hitting, this is what you add here. With input simulation, this is really kind of the exception to that rule. What we've done here is we have accumulated a pretty lengthy blacklist, if you will, of known mouse jigglers. These are software-based applications that are intended to keep the system active. Caffeine, I think, is one of the more popular ones where you kind of just let it run, keeps the system active. In terms of optics, I'm online and I'm working, where I may be, on the golf course, running the third hole. On the other side of that, we also have logic built into the system to first analyze and then identify mouse patterns to determine if they're likely not, human input or unauthentic. So really here we bring those two together. When the system determines that this is not human input or it's some kind of input simulation, at that point the alarm will trigger, and then from there you get to decide how you want the system to take action. First two options here would be screen captures. So if you have the screen details add-on, you'll have both the screen capture and pop-up message options available to you. With the screen capture, you can just say, I'd like a single screenshot to fire off as soon as this event is detected, or as long as this is the active activity, right? I wanted to continue to take screenshots. With input simulation, this is pretty handy because it really gives you concrete evidence. In this example, maybe I set that to fire off every 10 seconds. So the system detects that artificial input. It takes that first screenshot. From there, every 10 seconds, it's taking the same screenshot. As you go back and review this information, it's really easy to tell that the screen hasn't really changed, from those 10 seconds to the next. So it makes it a pretty easy investigation, right, as far as whether or not, that this was simulation or maybe just the activity patterns from the employee, were just detected and interpreted as potential false activity. The other piece here would be the pop-up message. So this really allows you to interact with that employee. There is no labeling of ActivTrak. It really just says that it's a message coming from the administrator. And you'll notice there's some dynamic tagging here to make that message a little bit more personal. So you can just say, hey, Suzanne, are you working on this, or whatever message you're looking to present. Not one that would typically being utilized within the input simulation. This is more for notification and record keeping. But if there's any appetite to maybe allow that employee to course correct, you have that option of presenting that message to the end user. And then from there, who are those that need to be notified? This can be either through email notification, or you can leverage our webhooks, which allow an API push to your messaging system. So that can be Slack or MS Teams, for example, where you just get a direct ping. Again, there's dynamic tagging here, so you can make sure that all the salient points of what occurred are delivered to the right individuals. For some of these, like input simulation, we often see distro groups being added. So maybe this goes to the entire IT team or to the IT and security personnel, right? And the same with the notifications. Maybe this goes to the manager or somebody a little bit higher up. The terminate option, not typically utilized with an input simulation, but it is available. So if the alarm is triggered and you feel like this may pose some kind of security risk, for example, you can allow the system to terminate that application.
Hey, Jose, there's a question in chat just wanting to know about that screenshot feature. And I know you can have a notification that goes to whoever you set it up to. Does that notification include the screenshot, or can you just configure it so that the screenshot will go to the employee so that they know kind of what's happening?
Yeah, and Suzanne, keep me honest here. I don't believe the screenshot is included in the alarm notification through email, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. It's a link directly to the report that will show you that screenshot. Mm-hmm. And that's for security reasons, to make sure that those screenshots that only certain plans have, if you have that add-on to show screen details, making sure that if there's sensitive data within those images, it doesn't get leaked.
That makes sense. Privacy first. Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, it would redirect you into the application. It would bring you into the logs, and then within the logs, you can see all the information that was collected and logged from that alarm, including the screenshots. Really, the last piece here in terms of configuration is your alarm risk level. So there is a risk level report. If it's not one that you've explored already, I recommend you get familiar with it. This really just allows you to define the level of risk for each of these alarms. So as these are being fired off and logged, we'll aggregate all of these fired alarms into the risk level report. Based on the severity of risk, it'll give it more of a point-based system, and it'll float those alarms with the highest risk severity to the very top, kind of allowing you to focus on what's most important first and work your way down. Cool. From there, we'll get into the use of incorrect business tools, right? I think the example I gave is maybe somebody accessing a certain part of an HR system, right? So this may be classified as being productive, and I am expected to use certain elements of this tool. We'll say Bamboo HR, for example. But there may be areas of there that may include sensitive information or identifiable information that I'm not really expected to access. So here you can actually build those conditions into the alarm. In this example, we're going to say it's within Bamboo HR, and it's specifically within the employee view. So this is where you can see all of the employee details. Me as a manager of the marketing team, it's not really relevant for my role to be able to see the entire company's employee base, right? Or maybe we go into an account management system where you can see all of our vendor contacts. One example that I think is a hot button right now is the use of AI. Typically, you're going to have different alarms set up for these use cases. Well, just for the sake of time here, I thought I'd go ahead and include that condition as part of this alarm. DeepSeek is kind of the hot button right now. So that's one that you can include as the value. Anytime somebody hits that domain, the alarm is triggered. And then just like before, you get to define how you want the system to react, what information you want to capture, and ultimately be relayed to you throughout the notification. So from here, as we define those conditions, again, I go into the configuration. In this example, I think a pop-up message does make sense, right? I'm accessing an area that I shouldn't, so I'm going to give the user a chance to self-course correct. In this example, I'm using that dynamic tagging just to include their name and make that a little bit more personal. So I'm just saying, hey, Suzanne, please ensure that you're only accessing the pre-approved areas of Bamboo HR. Maybe I went to this area by accident or mistake. So this just gives me that self-check, right? And then from there, I'm able to kind of go back from my deviation. I won't spend too much time. The logic is identical as we saw before. So really, do I need this notification delivered through email? If so, who needs this delivered? Include the subject line, any information as part of the body, utilize the dynamic tagging to allow the system to capture all the important information and deliver that to you. And then from there, make the call, as far as risk of or severity risk, where you want that. Maybe this is more of a 9 or since this is more of, personal information that could be exposed, we'll set this pretty high and ensure that this gets floated to the very top of that risk level report. I know we've got a few minutes left here, so I'll quickly jump into the entertainment break. So this is more around unproductive activity, right? I want to know about anytime somebody's accessing, Netflix or Hulu during business hours. Or perhaps, this is something that is allowed, but only during their break or lunch, right? So along with the conditions of the domain or description of the activity, I could also add something like duration. So I'll say, this is going to be allowed, but only, up to 15 minutes. So that would be translated to 900 seconds. So I can add that additional condition. If they access Netflix, this alarm will not trigger until they exceed that 15-minute threshold. And as before, we've got the option for screen capture, pop-up messaging. This is one that we often see being utilized, just asking, you've exceeded those 15 minutes on Netflix. Now let's ask the question, are you on break? If so, let's get you back on task. If maybe you finished out your day, then it's a message that you can simply ignore as the employee. And then getting more into exception reports. And I believe Suzanne touched on the activity breakdown report earlier. I believe she showed it more at the team level, which is really understanding as a team, are we meeting the productivity goal and how are we utilizing our time, right? As you move into the user subtab, this is going to expose all of the individual level statistics. So now I can understand at the employee level, how many productivity hours are they putting in? And keep in mind, right now we're looking at the last 7 days, really focusing on the marketing team. From there, you can further filter into a specific user. You can even say, let's omit any data from the weekend, for example. And now I can understand, within those last 7 days or last 30 days, for example, how many active days did they have? What was the average productive hours by day? And a few other statistics here. And down below, getting a better understanding of how those individuals are allocating their time across all the different categories of technology. So as you've gone through your classification and working on standing up the system, right, you've mapped all of those activities to those broader categories of technology. And now you can understand how those individuals are spending their time. For some, this could indicate some type of training opportunity, while for others that are more of the top performers, this can serve more as that model or that blueprint that you can use to develop the habits that you expect that you can start to replicate with some of the underperformers. Now, reason why this report is really one of the crowd favorites with our customers is that you can define those additional filters, right? So, maybe you've got the expectation of over the last 7 days, I expect 5 days to be online for each employee. And we're going to define that optimal or that healthy work zone to be in between 8.5 hours and 6.5, right? That's where we expect them to work. Anyone who works above or below that, we want to know about. Those are the ones that we want to focus on, provide some coaching, and be able to course correct and ensure that they're working as they should and as they're expected. So by adding these filters in, I can then subscribe to this report. So now I know exactly what I'm going to get and tell the system I need this every Monday morning. This is when I'm going to conduct this type of analysis. So I can simply say this is going to be a weekly reoccurrence. This is going to happen on Monday. Define the format that I need it in. Typically, we see this more in PDF. I can include a link to this dashboard so I can redirect right into the platform if I need to conduct further analysis, and then define the time frame. What I've noticed is typically when you define that morning time frame, it's going to be closer to the 8 a.m., but it'll fall in between 8 and 12 p.m. for that option. If you're subscribing any other employees or managers or leadership, if you're subscribing them to this report, you can also include some additional context as to why they're getting this report, right? This report is designed to include the outliers, anyone who may be working too much that may need a break, or those that may not be working enough and may need a conversation, or we want to look at for potential work rebalance, right? These are the ones that we can reallocate some of the bandwidth to. Once you have that defined, simply set and forget, and know that all this information will be waiting for your inbox, that following morning. Looks like we got there just in time, right at close time. So I'll stop sharing my screen here. I believe we may have one additional poll. If not, I'll pass it over to Megan for closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. Thanks, Suzanne. Really appreciate all the content. And hey, everyone in the audience, cannot thank you enough. Wonderful participation, great questions. We always appreciate that, because then I think these, demos or, trainings then get a little bit more personalized. And if you're wondering, then probably somebody else is also wondering. And so we want to make sure that we can use these sessions to, get your questions answered. So I did want to ask, we're out of time. I did want to find out if you want to learn more about some of these things, our team can follow up with you to talk through them, whether it was that custom goal setting for your org, so you can really make sure that you've got strategic alignment across and you're all marching towards the same goal. Whether it's schedule adherence that Suzanne, was talking about, that's in early access right now. That notification part is in beta. Calendar integration, that's the offline meetings, being able to see that non-digital activity and being able to really get that full picture of the day. Alarms and notifications that Jose chatted through. And so, there are those out of the box ones is what we call them, where they're kind of pre-configured. You can customize them to what you need for your org. If you're interested in learning more about those, or automated exception reports. So I know we went through that a little bit quickly at the end there, but if you are interested in learning more about those, as Jose mentioned, I know that customers really, really like those. I know I personally like it for my team, more on the front of making sure that they're not working too much. I want to get that alert to know if I need to rebalance, reprioritize, or anything like that. They're super helpful. Or if there's just something else that you would like your account team to follow up with you, please let us know. You can let us know here in this poll. You can let us know in the contact us module down below. But other than that, again, I would welcome you to come to our 101 session tomorrow. We actually did have several questions in the background that are covered in that session around passive and active time and creating groups and activity classification and things like that. So we know that there's a lot to learn and a lot to do. So I do welcome you to come to that. Like I said, don't let that 101 fool you. So would invite you to come to that. Thanks for being a great audience. Thanks again, Jose. Thanks, Suzanne. Y'all were awesome as always. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next time.